Scrooge sat trembling on his bed, one eye half open, his hands clutching the bedpost. Or was it a bedpost? For a moment he thought it might be still the cold hand of that silent, hooded phantom. He opened the other eye. Yes, it definitely was a bedpost, and furthermore his own. The bed was his own, the room as well. And then his face relaxed into a happy smile. The first smile to light up those gnarled old features for many a bleak year. For, most important of all, the time before him was his own time in which to make amends. Scrooge then scrambled out of bed and danced for joy around the room. "I will live in the past, the present, and the future," he called. "The spirits of all three shall strive within me. Oh, Jacob Marley, heaven and Christmas time be praised for this. Dear Jacob, good old Jacob." He was so fluttered and so glowing with his good intentions that his broken voice would scarcely answer to his call. "The curtains are not torn down. And here are my clothes, my possessions. They're here. I'm here. Oh, the shadows of the things that would have been may be dispelled. Oh, they will be. I know they will. Oh, a Merry Christmas to everybody. A Happy New Year to all the world." But Scrooge was checked in his laughter by the churches, ringing out the lustiest peals he'd ever heard. He ran to the window, and oh, what a sight met his eyes. No fog, no mist. Clear, bright, jovial, stirring cold. Cold, piping for the blood to dance to. Golden sunlight, heavenly sky, sweet, fresh air, and merry, merry bells. Below Scrooge's window, a young boy, dressed in his Sunday clothes, was loitering on the pavement. "What day is it today?" called Scrooge. "Eh?" returned the boy with all his might of wonder. "What day is it, my fine fellow?" asked Scrooge. "Today?" replied the boy. "Why, it's Christmas Day." "It's Christmas Day," said Scrooge to himself. "I haven't missed it. The spirits have done it all in one night. They can do anything they like. Of course they can." "Hello there, my fine fellow." "And hello to you," returned the boy. "Do you know the poulterers in the next street but one at the corner?" "I should hope I did," replied the lad. "Oh, an intelligent boy," said Scrooge. "A remarkable boy. Well, run down there now and buy that big turkey hanging at the front." "What? The one as big as me?" "Oh, what a delightful boy," said Scrooge. "It's a pleasure to talk to him." "Yes, that's the one. Off you go and tell the good man to bring it here, and I'll give you a shilling. Come back in less than 5 minutes, and I'll make it half-a-crown." Scrooge then sat down at his desk, a quill in the one hand, a card in the other, and a twinkle in his eye. "I'll send it to Bob Cratchit's," he whispered. "Oh, he shan't know who sends it. It's twice the size of Tiny Tim." The hand in which he wrote the address was not a steady one, but write it he did somehow, and then went downstairs to open up the street door, ready for the coming of the poulterer's man. But as he stood there, the knocker caught his eye. "I shall love it as long as I live," he said. "God bless you, Jacob Marley."
Oh, Jacob Marley.
Scrooge looked on in utter amazement. Had he seen what he had seen, or had he not? Perhaps it was just his fertile imagination after a night spent in the company of so many ghosts. And he decided to put it down to that. For now he could hear the poulterer's man arriving with the turkey. It was a turkey. It could never have stood upon its legs, that bird. 'Twould have snapped them off short in a minute like sticks of sealing wax. "Oh, why, it's impossible to carry that to Camden Town," said Scrooge. "You must have a cab." The chuckle with which he said this, and the chuckle with which he paid the poulterer, the cabby, and the young boy, were only to be exceeded by the chuckle with which he sat down, breathless, in his chair again. He chuckled and chuckled and chuckled till he cried. Oh, what a change had now come over Scrooge. Never before had the small inhabitants of the dark back streets in which he lived heard him sing, and to hear him do so now as he shaved and dressed caused them to look on in utter amazement. It was but 5 minutes after the dispatch of the giant turkey that a jaunty Scrooge stepped out onto the pavement in his best attire and made for the main thoroughfares. The people were by this time pouring forth as he had seen them with the ghost of Christmas present. And walking with his hands behind him, Scrooge regarded everyone with a delighted smile. He looked so irresistibly pleasant, in a word, that 3 or 4 good-humoured fellows said, "Good morning, sir. A Merry Christmas to you." And Scrooge said often afterwards that of all the blithe sounds he'd ever heard, those were the blithest in his ears. He had not gone far when, coming on towards him, he beheld the portly gentleman who had walked into his counting-house the day before and said, "Scrooge and Marley's, I believe." It sent a pang across his heart to think how this gentleman would look upon him when they met. But he knew what path lay straight before him, and he took it. "My dear sir," said Scrooge, taking the gentleman by both his hands, "how do you do? I hope you succeeded yesterday. It was very kind of you. A Merry Christmas to you, sir." "Mr. Scrooge?" "Yes," said Scrooge, "that is my name. And I fear it may not be pleasant to you. Allow me to ask your pardon, and will you have the goodness to accept this gift? It may in some small way alleviate the suffering of those you seek to help." Scrooge then handed to this worthy gentleman a small leather bag. "Lord bless me," cried the other, peering into the bag. "My dear Mr. Scrooge, are you serious?" "If you please," said Scrooge, "not a farthing less. A great many back payments are included in it, I assure you. Will you do me that favour?" "My dear sir," said the other, "I really don't know what to say." "Don't say anything, please," retorted Scrooge. "Come and see me. Will you come and see me?" "I will indeed," cried the portly gentleman, and it was clear he meant to do it. Later that morning, it was an amazed congregation and a delighted vicar that wished our Scrooge a happy Christmas after morning service. That Ebenezer Scrooge should go to church was indeed a talking point. And here he was now, smiling at the children, giving money to the beggars. Like old Fezziwig, it was Scrooge now who was finding happiness in the happiness of others. 'Twas in the afternoon that he turned his steps towards his nephew's house, and having plucked up enough courage, he knocked upon the door. "Is your master at home, my dear?" said Scrooge to the girl. "Oh, nice girl, very nice." "Yes, sir." "Oh, where is he, my love?" said Scrooge. "He's in the dining room, sir, along with the mistress. I'll show you upstairs, if you please." "Oh, don't bother about that," said Scrooge. "I'll go right in. He knows me." "Good heavens, I don't believe it," called the nephew. "It can't be." "But it is. It's Uncle Ebenezer." "Oh, you've taken up my invitation, Uncle. You've come to see us and to dine with us tonight. Am I right?" Scrooge said nothing. He simply stood in the doorway smiling, his happiness growing every minute. Oh, but Scrooge was early at the office next morning. If he could only be there first and catch Bob Cratchit coming late, that was the thing he'd set his heart upon. And he did it. Yes, he did. The clock showed 9. No Bob. 1:15. Still no Bob. He was full 18 minutes and a half behind his time when he dashed in the door, his hat and comforter already off. Scrooge sat and watched his clerk take his seat. Then, growling in his accustomed voice as near as he could feign it, asked, "What do you mean by coming here at this time of day?" "I'm very sorry, sir," said Bob. "I am behind my time." "Yes, I think you are," said Scrooge. "Kindly step this way." Poor Bob stood in front of Scrooge. "It's only once a year, sir. It won't be repeated, I promise you. I was making rather merry yesterday, sir." "Now I'll tell you what, my friend. I'm not going to stand this sort of thing any longer. And therefore, I'm about to raise your salary. Poor Bob. He knew not how to take this or what followed. A Merry Christmas, Bob. A merrier Christmas, my good fellow, than I've given you for many a year. I'll raise your salary, I'll help your struggling family. And this very afternoon, we'll discuss your affairs over a Christmas bowl of smoking bishop. Make up the fires, Bob Cratchit, and buy another coal scuttle before you dot another I. And indeed, Scrooge was as good as his word. He did it all and infinitely more. And to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was a second father. He became as good a friend, as good a master, and as good a man as the good old city knew, or any other good old city, town, or borough in the good old world. And it was always said of Scrooge that he knew how to keep Christmas well, if any man alive possessed the knowledge. May that be truly said of us, and all of us. And so, as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us, every one.